listening to WPVM LP, 103.7, Asheville.
Good morning. You're listening to the Blaine's Roller Show, heard each Wednesday here on the new WPVM LP in Asheville, North Carolina. You can also listen online at WPVM.fm.org. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and each week we focus on the Asheville theater scene as well as on positive news and information about people and organizations in the Asheville area. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce my first guest, Jennifer McDuff. Welcome aboard, Jennifer.
Thanks so much, Blaine.
And Jennifer, I should mention, is a life coach out of Hendersonville, North Carolina, who's also a licensed clinical social worker with over 12 years' experience. She brings radiance, I like that, radiance and heart to her life coaching business and enjoys peeling back the layers of self-doubt that stop many of us living in our greatness. I really like that. When she's not coaching or working as a medical social worker, she enjoys gardening and spending time with her miniature dachshund, Mackenzie.
Yes.
And the question I ask Jennifer, just because I'm always curious about it, in terms of how you got into the field, and you heard me ask off the air, when you were a little 7-year-old girl, were you always running around and telling your parents and everybody else you wanted to be a life coach?
I didn't even know what a life coach was then.
Well, that's true, right? But
Right.
Life coach is a relatively new
It is, absolutely.
profession. So how did you get involved in it?
So my sister has been a life coach for several years, and she introduced me to her community of life coaching. I attended an observation and workshop in New York City, and I immediately knew that I wanted to be a part of that community. So a week later, I signed up for the year-long training program, intensive training program, and the rest is history.
So you became a life coach when you had the training program. Was that in person, online, or a combination of both?
It's in person, and yes, so it's 168 hours of training. So I flew to New York City one weekend a month. So it's Saturday and Sunday, all day training, and then I also participated in my own coaching with my mentor coach once a week for an hour.
Okay. So for the benefit of our listeners who don't know what life coaching is, again, it's still a relatively new field, I guess. What is it?
So life coaching is a way for us to kind of coach people out of their fears, also making dreams come true, getting out of our own ways, practicing a new way of being, kind of accomplishing those things that we never really, kind of that hold us back, from, like, you've always wanted to publish that book, or you've always wanted to open your own business, or things like that.
Well, what's kind of cool about it, that it sounds like what you're doing is almost like what parents do or did when we were little kids. But then all of a sudden, when we get adults, we don't have anybody doing that for us.
Correct.
Okay, so I think we want you to move just a little closer to the mic there. That'd be great. But yeah, so parents encourage their kids all the time. But as adults, who do we go to? Or we don't have coaches anymore. And so I
Right.
guess that's where you come in?
It is, yes. So I think everyone could benefit from coaching if they are interested in making a change. So coaching starts when there's a gap. So, I'm here and I want to be over there. Or, I have these things that I'm committed to in my life, but I'm not quite accomplishing that yet.
So I guess one of the key things to be successful working with you is that it would be helpful if you have something you want to work on or
Correct.
something you need change. And what are some of the things that kind of you work with people or that they need help with?
All sorts of things. So whether it's managing relationships or career changes, also personal kind of things, achieving that work-life balance, that sort of stuff.
What about this issue? Like, I hear what you're saying. It's great if somebody has one thing they're working on. Do you have anybody come in, and I guess that's a challenge to you as a life coach, that they have 4 or 5 things, or they come in with a list. I have 17 things that I need help with. Do you
Sure.
ever have that happen?
Absolutely. So, a lot of times people think that it's just one thing or two things, and then after the first session, it's like 15 things. And usually those things have one common or kind of like a common thread.
Now, how long does the process take?
So I offer a complimentary life coaching like introduction session, and so I talk with my clients about if it would be a good fit, for both of us, to work together, and I usually sign a 6-month contract, and we work with each other 1 hour a week.
And when you work with them, can it be in person, or is it on the phone or Skype, or how do you do that?
Yeah, I can do things in person, but most of my work is done via video conferencing calls via the Zoom application.
Which is incredible, that people can do that. Do you find that some people, after the 6 months, do they go beyond that, or does the process sometimes can take longer?
Yeah, so it can. I mean, you can be with a life coach for a long time if you want.
For your life,
Sure,
right?
sure. I think it just depends on, what the person is working on and if they are interested in continuing to, work on things or, maybe they're just done.
Do you have some people who don't know what they want to work on, or they come to you and, they need help, but they're not sure in what area of help they need?
Sure. So I talk to people about kind of like what's missing in your life, or what makes you feel uneasy about things right now, and reality of kind of what is and what's so.
Now, I don't know if you've had one yet. Have you worked with anybody doing any writing? Have you worked with an author yet?
I have not.
Okay, give me a tip. If not an author, I'm just trying to think. I know a lot of people work with my friend who's a life coach on writing. Give me an example of somebody you work with. Give me an issue they're working on.
So some of the things recently that I've been working on with my clients is achieving that work-life balance, and they're committed to their family, and so really accomplishing that. They're high achievers, and really want to continue with their career, but also realize that their relationship with their family is not where they want it to be.
Let's take that one, because I guess that's a pretty big issue,
It is.
especially if you have a career, you have, if not 17 children, you have 3 children,
Right.
And you're active in the community. Is it possible to achieve that balance?
Absolutely.
Give me some, I'll get some free advice here from you, but give me some things you would work with me on. Like if I came to you and said that, hey, I'm doing well in my career, I'm doing well in my marriage, but I don't have time. I guess that's an issue that comes up. They don't have time enough to do everything they want. So I guess it's kind of a time management issue as well.
It is, yeah. So we talk about time and the context of time and what does that mean, and kind of how you spend your time. Do you spend all of your time worrying about not having enough time? That's a common thing. And if we quit worrying about it, maybe we would have enough time.
Well, what if I spend some time on Facebook? Is that okay? Or
Sure, I think it's about setting limits and boundaries, and I love checking my Facebook first thing in the morning, but I have also put limits on that and don't check it until midday, because I could lay in bed all morning if I wanted, looking at it.
well, isn't that a great thing? I think for people doing lots of issues that if you feel you're overwhelmed by doing something,
Right.
Facebook or watching TV or
Yeah.
whatever, set a limit. Have you ever used this, or you tell clients to use a little sand time? What is it? The sand timer. Have you ever heard of that? Or
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I've done some of that before. I think it's you have to find what works for the individual client, and sometimes that is scheduling out, like if you have to schedule in working out, or having dinner with your family, or whatever that is. Sometimes that works for people. Sometimes it's after 8 p.m. I'm not gonna do any work, career related stuff. I'm gonna spend time with my family.
Or even I've heard, and again, I don't do it, but I've heard that some people actually turn off all the electronic stuff.
Absolutely.
No computer, no internet, no even TV, and just quiet time or family time.
Right.
But I guess it takes discipline to have to do that.
It does, and change doesn't happen, overnight. It takes, it's a process, and it takes, time to develop that new habit.
I guess also that points out the value of working with a Jennifer McDuff or another life coach, that you also have a certain degree of accountability. In other words, if it's just me, I can do something or not do it.
Sure.
But if I have to report to you once a week, it's like a checkup or something. Is that kind of what happens?
Yeah, it is. So, we often ask our clients to, a what by when. So, kind of have these weekly practice areas. So, I might coach someone into, they're going to work out every morning from 8 to 10 a.m. and let's try that for a week. So if that's what they're committed to, I don't come up with these things. That's my clients that, come up with these things. So, or it's, limiting watching movies during the daytime, versus looking for jobs or.
Now, do they actually, when they make that commitment, do they follow through on the commitment?
Some do, some don't, and sometimes it takes, a little bit more nudging or, talking about it.
Are there any problems that you've encountered, or folks that have problems that are harder than others to deal with? Let me for example, habits. And not as prevalent as it used to be, but cigarette smoking. I don't know, have you worked with any cigarette smokers yet?
No, not yet.
But is there anything that's like really hard for people to get a handle on, and
I
a
think-
life coach can help?
Sure. I think it's those behaviors that are so ingrained in us for forever. I mean, things that we started doing when we were 3 or 4 or 5, and it's not necessarily like cigarette smoking or something like that, but it's feeling like that I don't matter, or I don't have, no one loves me, or I'm this broken child, or something like that kind of overarching kind of rules your life.
And can you help people get past that?
Absolutely.
Well, that's an interesting one you just mentioned, nobody loves me, or, well, aside from you loving the person,
Right.
how do you work with somebody who comes to you with that kind of attitude?
Yeah. So we keep digging, and we keep asking those questions to further kind of drill in, like what happened, like when you first started feeling this way, like kind of what situation did you come across in your life as a young child for you to not feel like anyone loves you, and often people are able to identify those things. And so when you're able to identify those kind of contexts that we, have in our lives, we can work on coaching out of that.
And then I guess one of the beauties, if you're with them in person, then after that you give them a big hug, and
Right.
and that gets there, that they started right. Do you ever give homework to clients, or things they have to work on between sessions?
So I don't always kind of like dictate that. It's really working with the client to figure out like what they're committed to and what they want to work on.
I think that's a real key. That so after each session, I try to do that a little bit with my counseling for SCORE.
Right.
That gives somebody something, like you said. I like how you did that. That they come up with the idea,
Right.
and they're more prone to doing it than if you told them what to do.
Correct.
And so I guess you're working with me or a client and constantly trying to get from them what they want to work on.
Absolutely. So they really need to be in the driver's seat. So the relationship doesn't work, if I'm trying to drive their agenda. So it's really important for coaches to sit back and ask those, be curious and ask those questions to kind of coach past these objections that folks have, or coach situations, that come up and are difficult for our clients.
Have you had any breakthroughs with clients, or not you have the breakthrough, but they have the breakthroughs? Have you had any breakthroughs that happen?
Sure. I think being more disciplined at work, is one thing that I worked on with a few people, working on relationships, becoming more confident in their relationships that they have, or leaving a relationship that wasn't working and having that courage to do so.
Have you helped people with that too?
Absolutely.
Now, not the drawback to that, but does it somebody has a breakthrough, sometimes it can take 6 months, sometimes it can take years,
Sure.
sometimes it can take a shorter time. Does that ever happen?
Sure, it's if the client is wanting to, to still kind of make that change, and the coach continues to ask those questions and get curious about why they're feeling a certain way. The type of coaching that I do is ontological, and so it's like the study and the way we are, the study of being, and so we really look at changing that and how we present ourselves to the world and who we are.
Because it must be exciting that if I'm working with you
Mm-hmm.
and somebody says, aha, or do you have those? I mean, it must be very exciting when that happens, both for you and the client,
Yeah.
that they just said, I got it.
It's usually like, oh, okay. Yes.
And again, I guess the value of working with a life coach is, and we'll talk about this, so you're not a therapist by any stretch of the imagination. You're
Not
a
in
coach.
not in my life coaching business.
Right, exactly. Well, yeah. Which had you, because in
Right.
your other business, you're a therapist?
I am a licensed clinical social worker.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So you do have to draw the line. But explain, if you would, the difference then between the two, because some people, I think, get confused with it. That
Sure.
if I see a life coach versus a therapist is kind of I guess, key distinction.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
So some of the things, there's a difference between therapy, mentoring, consulting, coaching. So coaching really deals with the person's present and seeks to guide them through to their future and what they want to do. Consulting, people are usually hired for a very specific purpose on, providing like this expertise. And therapy usually deals with the past and like some type of trauma, or, it's clinically based. Usually with the therapist has an agenda to get this person past, this clinical issue.
And so what I hear you saying is kind of the difference between the two is, in large part, the client is driving the agenda. He or she is telling you what they want to work on,
Correct.
and you're helping them, I guess, define that or make it very specific as to working on everything. Just do you do that? Do you kind of work on just initially one or two things at a time rather than a lot of things?
Well, so when I go into a session with a client, I don't really know what's going to happen during that session, right? So it's, my clients will often come to me with a coaching request of like, what do you want to talk about today? And we kind of go from there, and I might think, oh, this might be where we're headed with this, and sometimes it's not, because it's not the coach's job to drive, the agenda.
And I guess that's one of your challenges, to come up with the questions or keep them thinking. I guess that's in large part, it seems that's what you do. You just ask lots of questions.
I ask a lot of questions to kind of keep elevating the issue. So, it's usually not that one thing that, we go into the conversation thinking it is. It's usually much broader and more worldly of an issue versus, I just don't feel like going to the gym today.
Well, give me an example. We can use the gym one as an example. And I've been there too, not wanting to go to the gym. But that's, I think, kind of a good example. You start out with a specific concern, and then you take it to what becomes the broader issue. You mentioned, like, they didn't want to go to the gym that day.
Yeah, so why, what is it about the gym that makes you feel uncomfortable? Or what is it that is difficult to get to the gym? And keep asking those type of questions to really hone in on, okay, well, it's not just that you don't want to go to the gym. It's, you have fear about working out at the gym or being with other people, or it can be anything like that.
It reminds me of the gym ones. I'm trying to think of the old joke that the guy wakes up and his mother says, you have to go to school today.
Right.
Doesn't, the joke? And
No.
Anyway, doesn't want to go to school, and the kid says, well, I don't want to go to school. Mother says, you have to go to school. But, Mom, none of the kids like me. Doesn't matter, you have to go to school. But what's the real issue? Mom, the teachers don't like me. Doesn't matter, you got to go to school. Mom, the custodian doesn't like me. Still got to go to school. And hey, look, you're 43 years old. You're principal of the school. You have to go there, Back to what you were saying, the real
Right.
issue, you know, rather than just that's interesting, just have a momentary thing. So it's not just not wanting to go to the gym that day. There must be an overriding issue.
Right. Yeah.
And so when the person finds the overriding issue, then what does he or she do with it? Take the one, I think it's a good example about somebody not wanting to go into work today.
Sure.
And where do they go with that?
Well, so, you know, why don't they want to go into work, right? Is it, was there a situation that happened? Is it, you know, usually it's some type of like internal, like how we react to maybe our coworkers, or maybe there's, you know, a coworker that really triggers you, you know, and something that, you know, is kind of just festering inside of us. Yeah.
Do you sometimes have people decide with your help that maybe they shouldn't be going to that job, or maybe they should be looking to change careers?
Yeah, so there's a lot of people that feel unfulfilled, you know, in their careers, and you know, sometimes it's motivated by money that they keep those jobs, and you know, it's really kind of honing in on what the client is dedicated to in their life and what they're committed to. So is it doing something that you really love? Is it finding that purpose in your life? Or is it working, you know, 80 hours a week and making buku bucks, but you don't have time to do the things that you love?
Well, you raise a good point, too, even in terms of when you're working at a job. Do you help folks sometimes, you know, if they have to stay in the job because of the money or whatever the reason, but find greater value or purpose or meaning in the jobs they're currently working in? Can that sometimes be changed around?
Sure. So I think it's very much about perspective and kind of how you come across, you know, at work. So, you know, if someone comes to me and says, "Well, I'm, you know, having, you know, I just really don't like that person. I don't like my coworker." Okay. Well, do you go into work every day thinking, "I don't like that coworker"? Sure, then that's going to probably be your continued attitude about it. But, you know, if you go in and really, you know, are dedicated to improving that relationship with your coworker, it can really change a lot of things.
Well, you know, it's funny you say that because I've heard the same thing, too, in relationships, you know, that, and it ties into a book I'll mention in just a second, but that if you're trying to find something wrong with the relationship every day, you wake up and make the list, and I've been guilty of it, you know, that's sort of a negative mindset.
Sure.
And as opposed to trying to find something right or good or positive, and you can just find one thing a day.
Right.
And I've read that relationships can change radically on just that principle, you know, find the
Absolutely.
good. Ken Blanchard, I don't know if you've read the book or you might want to, The 1 Minute Manager talks about that, and he talks about 1 minute praisings versus 1 minute reprimands.
Right.
And we should give 9 out of 10 of our interactions should be positive. But when you think about it with kids, it's just the opposite sometimes. You know,
Right.
we don't love them, we don't hug them. I guess you can do that in work too. Just change it and get the person to thinking a little bit about that.
Right. Right.
And, you know, that's a really good example. If you don't like who you're working with, I guess part of it could be, you know, maybe you're not such a bowl of cherries to work with.
Right.
Does that ever happen? Talk to me about some other breakthroughs you've had with the clients, or some of the clients you've worked with that you've actually helped. Can you think of anything else?
Well, I can tell you kind of some of the big breakthroughs that I've had working with my own coach. So,
Oh, interesting. So
yes,
even now, are you still working with the coach?
I am. So it's really important as coaches that we, you know, kind of walk the walk and talk the talk, and continue to work on things in our own lives. So
Did working with a coach also help you get to be where you are now?
yes, so part of the training program that I was involved in and completed involved meeting with a life coach once a week for the whole year.
And so that helped you decide you wanted to become a life coach?
Well, it was through that process that I, you know, really learned a lot about myself, and you know, I actually found myself again. So, you know, I now have the confidence to talk about fears in my life, or you know, things that I'm going through. It's allowed me to be seen. You know, I often used to think of myself as not important, or kind of in the background. But now here I am on the radio and talking and proud and confident about what I'm
on,
doing.
on Facebook Live too. Okay. Had you ever been on the radio before?
I have not.
Okay, well, you're doing fine.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
And we'll hopefully make you a star on Facebook Live.
Yeah.
But that's interesting too. So working with a coach, I guess, and you've seen it through your coach, you try to do the same thing too with your clients? You know, make them feel more confident and self-assured?
If that's what they want to work on, sure.
Yeah. The anything else you've seen as a breakthrough? You said your experience. How about with your clients?
Oh,
Anything you're working on, not mentioning the specifics, but
Right.
anybody you're working with right now, give me an example of what you're working with them on.
yeah. So I have one gentleman who is feeling really stressed about his job in the finance industry, and just really having a difficult time with the culture, of his office, and kind of working past that, and really kind of getting around, kind of setting an example for others and who he wants to be in this world, which is very different than the culture currently, in his office. And so really working on changing that and changing his relationship and expectations with his supervisor.
Do you have any folks who work with you, or one of the things they want to work with you on is to actually change jobs or careers? That they're in a position, could be dead end, could be a very positive job, but they just don't, like you said, feel it's them. Does that ever come up?
Oh, sure. So, finding someone's purpose, is really a beautiful thing. Their purpose in life, and what they love to do, and really what brings them spark and joy, in their life, and being able to work that into a position, and finding, it's not, you don't just have to go to, jobs.com or whatever and, look for this specific thing. Sometimes it's looking at the skills that you bring, or the experience that you have, but it's not always like a work experience. Sometimes it's life experiences.
Do you ever help people, and it's probably very exciting when it happens, find the joy and passion even in their current job? Maybe they, as you were saying, you gave a great example before, it's just not being aware of it. Come in and saying, I don't like this person, terrible job. But if they, I guess, shift their thinking a little bit, they can sometimes find perhaps even joy or passion or enjoyment in their current job.
Absolutely. So, working with someone on really finding things that they can be happy about in their job, or just simply, having open conversations with their supervisors or colleagues on, like, this part of my job is really not working out for me. It's terrible, and maybe being creative with your supervisor and creating a new aspect of your job that you're really passionate about, or really want to put forth a lot of, time and energy into.
With your clients, do you ever do any role playing?
Sometimes.
Because just as you're saying, and again, that's the value of using a coach, that you've never had an experience doing that. You're worried about talking to your boss. Well, just do it.
Just do it now.
You-
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
As opposed to worrying about it. Jennifer, if anybody wants to find out more information about you, best bet is to do what?
You can go to my website, jennifermcduff.com. It's JenniferMcduff.com.
And I'll talk about what you do and how to reach you, all that good stuff.
Yes, there's a link on there. You can email me, give me a call, all those things.
And are you on Facebook as well?
I am.
For business too?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, you can find you as the, I guess, just look up Jennifer McDuff. Or,
Yeah, Jennifer McDuff Life Coaching. It's
super.
J McD Life Coaching.
Okay, and that'd probably be at your personal page maybe as
Mhm,
well.
There's a link, yeah.
Okay, but if you want to find out more about Jennifer McDuff, you can check her out on Facebook. Website again is what?
JenniferMcDuff.com.
And hopefully, and I believe it might be, you'll be able to see this whole interview again on
Yes.
on Facebook Live, or if you missed it, you can find out all about Jennifer. And I'd like to thank you very much for coming on board this first half hour of the Blainsboro Show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, this was great, Jennifer. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
As Jennifer works her way out of the studio, I'd like to mention that underwriter support for WPVM is made possible by Goodwill of Western North Carolina. Goodwill creates opportunities for people to enhance their lives by training, workforce development, services, and collaboration with community organizations. More information on the web at Goodwill of Western North Carolina. I'd also like to recognize a couple other things happening in the area. One is happening, if I can find it, with respect to the Asheville Rotary chapter. And the Asheville Rotary is making historic progress toward a polio-free world while urging community support to end the paralyzing disease. And it's particularly appropriate in that tomorrow is World Polio Day, and that's an event that Rotary is very active in. If you'd like to find out more about how you can help out or get involved with the program, you contact the person in charge of it, Catherine Marsani, and her address is kmarsani@rotary@gmail.com. Let me repeat that, KMOROSANI Rotary@gmail.com. And Catherine will be a guest in a couple of weeks talking more about that. In addition, if I can find it, I'd like to encourage you folks to check out something else too that's happening in the area, and that's something called the Readers Theater Showcase. And right now, they have a show on, I'm trying to think if the name is here, I don't see the name here, but they have a show right now composed of a unique medley of stories, some bittersweet, others poignant, and laugh-out-loud stories. And plays present a psychological look at women. And now the show is Love, Loss, and What I Wore, and that'll be at the this coming October 26th to the 28th. For more information, go to Asheville Theater, spelled with an RE.org. It's now my pleasure to introduce my second guest, and it's exciting. This is a returning guest, and we weren't on Facebook Live last time, I don't think.
Yeah.
But this is, I'd like to introduce Abby Landry, and Abby Landry is a nutritionist, wellness expert, and current Slow Food Asheville president. For more, and we'll talk about how to get more information on that. And welcome aboard, Abby.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Great. And last time, I don't believe, were you president of the group then?
I was not.
Okay, well, congratulations.
Thank you.
In your spare time, this is so what
Exactly.
you're doing. And Abby will be sharing general information about slow food. So I love that title and some of the goals of the chapter. She'll also talk about some of the upcoming events the group is going to be involved in. And the same question, Abby, you've heard me ask maybe last time you were on as a guest, and also I asked the first guest. But how do you get involved? I guess the issue of the whole slow food movement. How do you get involved in that?
For me, because I have a nutrition background, food is very important in my life. So I was looking for a way to join an organization with like-minded people, and I met an acquaintance of a friend who was involved with Slow Food Asheville, and they said you'd be a great candidate to join the group. So I did that about 4 years ago, and here we are today. I'm the president.
Well, talk about, it's just, I love the title, it's slow food. What is slow food?
Sure. So my favorite answer this year has been that slow food is the opposite of fast food. We're all very familiar with fast food and the concept of fast food, but not many people hear about slow food. So slow food is a way that we can connect closely with our food, where the food comes from, how the food is raised, and that's a good way to build your relationship with food.
Now, slow foods, is this not just an Asheville thing? Is this throughout the country?
Correct. Slow Food is actually an international organization. It started in Italy. So we have a Slow Food International group. We also have a Slow Food USA group. And then underneath that, you have Slow Food chapters within the country. So in the USA, we have all different chapters in different cities.
So we have an Asheville chapter.
We do.
And tell me about the Asheville chapter. For example, how many people are involved in it?
The Slow Food Asheville chapter started in 2005, so we've been around for a number of years. We have about 8 people on the board right now, and then we have a number of volunteers and members under that. So we probably have a good following of about 50 people that show up at a lot of our events, but then we have almost 2,000 people on our newsletter list. So we have a lot of big fans out there within the Asheville community and surrounding areas.
And so people sign up to get involved? Do you folks have regular meetings or special programs? How do you do this?
We do. If you are interested, we have a board meeting every month. So the people that make the decisions about what events we're going to be involved in within the community, finances, and that stuff, we meet once a month. And then we have pretty much once a month events, whether it's a happy hour event or a project we're working on or going to a farmer's market and tabling and giving out information. We do a number of projects and events and festivals every year.
Now, personally, are you a slow food, I guess, fan, or you believe in it?
I do. I'll try to live that lifestyle as best I can every day.
Well, describe it if you would. You say that's kind of interesting, the lifestyle. What is the lifestyle of we'll call a that's interesting, a slow food junkie rather than a fast food junkie?
Okay.
What is it? Or I don't know, what do you call a slow foodie or?
Foodie, I think that works, yeah.
But a slow foodie as opposed to a fast foodie.
Right.
So what does that entail?
So that entails being familiar with where your food comes from. So the location, who grew it, who raised the animal. Slow food is chopping, preparing your vegetables and your meats, being really close to the food, touching it, preparing it the way that you want it prepared, cooking it the method that you prefer to cook it, and being aware of the great nutrition that's provided from this food. It's paying homage to those farmers that have put in a lot of hours growing this food and doing it a responsible way so that we get great sustenance, and the animals that were raised with respect and dignity, and then we're going to enjoy that food. It's going to taste better, and it's going to be a lot better for our bodies. It's also going to be better for the environment and society as a whole.
If ever there was a movement for Asheville or to have a slow food movement, this would be the city to do it in, though.
Absolutely.
And so if somebody gets involved in the chapter, you said come out to get on the mailing list, come out to some of the events, and describe, for example, you have a big event, is it the Heritage Food Project?
Correct.
What is that?
The Heritage Food Project started in 2015, and it is a project with the goals to grow food, eat that food, and then save the seeds for our future. We want to really pay respect to these heritage varieties that have been around for many years within our region. It's a way of preserving some food traditions and cultures in our area here in Asheville and the Appalachian area.
And so what are some of the foods and cultures you're preserving?
So we want to preserve the traditional Appalachian food culture. So we pick varieties under this project. We pick varieties that come from this Appalachian region. So this year we've chose the North Georgia Candy Roaster squash. And that squash grows well here in the area. It does well within our climate. It can tolerate various weather patterns that might be different compared to, say, being in Southern California. It might not grow well out there, but here it grows terrifically. So because it's not as much of a challenging variety to grow, it's fun. It's easier for gardeners. It's less intimidating, not having to fight different diseases over the gardening season. And then it just tastes really delicious. It's a very interesting looking variety of squash. It's a torpedo-shaped orange color. It can grow anywhere from 10 pounds up to 100 pounds. So it's going to be a great winter squash for people to eat this winter. It also lasts a long time on the shelf. So after you harvest this vegetable out of the garden, you can keep it on the shelf for up to 5 months, and the flavor just keeps developing and gets tastier and tastier as the months go along.
And talk about that with respect to, for example, the squash. Are you growing squash now, or to become part of this, do you encourage people to actually grow the product?
We do encourage people to grow the product. So at the beginning of the spring, what we do with this project is we give out this plant in some form. So whether it's a seed, a starter plant, or say a slip for a sweet potato, we try to get this plant started in as many gardens as possible in the springtime. And then we keep up with these gardeners and these farmers throughout the gardening season, talk about stories, troubleshooting, how ways to take care of the plant. And then at the end of the year, we have a big celebration for all those that grew the plant. And we celebrate in some kind of way, whether it be a potluck or a tasting event. And this year is different. We have partnered up with Twin Leaf Brewery, and they're actually making a beer out of the squash that people grew for us for the Heritage Food Project.
So now are you growing squash also?
I grew them. I've already harvested. They're sitting on my shelf in the basement.
It almost sounds like, the pumpkin contest where, do you also have a contest who grows the biggest squash, or is that?
We did talk about that idea, but we didn't do that.
No, because that'd be fun
It
though.
would be fun.
Because I guess, I don't know, are there ways to grow a bigger squash versus a smaller squash, or what determines that?
I think if somebody really wanted to grow as huge of a squash as possible, you could pump that sucker full of fertilizer and you'd
Oh, is it-
probably get a or if you have some really awesome compost that you just threw on it, it could probably get pretty big if you just let it sit there and grow.
Oh, is that what people do, like with pumpkins and stuff?
I've never done that, but that's what I would guess.
Well, that's fascinating. It's almost like a healthful alternative to steroids,
There you go.
No, but that's really cool. So you don't. The growing is the idea. You want to do a natural growing, not
Correct.
to pump artificial stuff into it.
Correct, yeah.
Think about that though, or I'll even be a judge next year. That would really be a lot of fun. to
It
have
would be.
Whatever the heritage project is, and you're going to see who can grow the largest one or something.
Right.
We get
I will encourage folks to check out our website. Check out the website and the Facebook page. There's a picture that we've used this year to kind of promote this event, and it's a gentleman holding a candy roaster squash that looks to be probably 100 pounds. So that'll give you a good picture of what one could look like if you wanted to just grow it out as big as possible for the fun of it.
Now, if I would come to your organization and having no experience, do you have folks who have no experience ever doing this, and you could help me get started?
Absolutely. That's part of one of the goals with this organization is we want to help educate people and let people know that growing your food, being closely connected to your food doesn't have to be an intimidating process. You can start out small and try to just grow some things that you really love, like tomatoes or cucumbers or something that might be simple like that. And then over the years, you can develop your gardening style. You can expand it. The more you learn, the more you become motivated to grow more. So we have a variety of people within the group that are experts, whether it be with saving seeds or helping people to grow a specific variety. We can give you different methods for growing things, whether something needs to be trellised and you need to have a lot of space in your garden, or you're only going to need maybe 2 feet to grow this plant out for the season. So we can kind of help you along the way and it not be such a task that if you're unfamiliar with, it's hard to tackle. It can be that easy.
The great thing about, I guess, the organization and what you do is the fact that what a great way to bring families together. In other words, and talk a little bit about this. First of all, do you have parents with children or grandparents with their grown children? Do you have that happening?
Absolutely. And we have a lot of people that are big Slow Food Asheville fans that come to these events that have grandchildren and children involved. What I think is great about the slow food movement is, as an adult, if you have children or grandchildren, if those kids see you living this lifestyle and your healthy respect for food and supporting the farmers and the growers and making it out to the farmers markets, if those kids see you making a habit of this in your life and see how great it makes you feel, then they're going to want to do the same thing.
Was this a switch for you, in other words, in terms of from when you grew up or how you grew up? Did you grow up in this kind of environment, or did you all of a sudden make it shift at some time?
Yeah, I would say my grandparents lived the slow food lifestyle a little bit more than my family did immediately. We were, 2 working parents full time, going nonstop, both kids in a number of activities. So we're going. My parents didn't raise a garden. And somewhere along the lines, I learned that what goes in my body really makes a huge difference about how I feel. And when I was in high school, I knew that I wanted to do something that had to do with food, and became a nutritionist. And then once I got out of school, met a lot of different farmers, people that were really involved with growing and supporting where food comes from. And then my path and passion has just developed over time.
Now, it's just almost like a lifestyle, I guess, for you, but other people as well, to go from, it's almost like they talk about living off the grid,
Sure.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that, so you used to fast food, and then to shift to this, it's almost, I guess, a shift in lifestyles,
It can be a hard adjustment for some people if you're not used to meal planning, doing some research and finding out what's coming into the markets right now, what's seasonally and fresh in the grocery. You've got to watch your budget. It's all got to be realistic for your life. It can be hard to do, but Slow Food Asheville is a great resource for that. I'm there to help people learn about meal planning. We have a registered dietitian on the board. She can help people meal plan. We have some board members that have up to 3 kids, and both parents work full time, so they live this lifestyle. They can say, here's what we do that keeps our kids involved and how we make it through each week doing slow food. So yeah, it can be an adjustment, but small changes over time can have a huge impact on your life.
Probably also, if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, this would be a great thing to get
Sure.
into if you're not already into it.
Sure.
You're mentioning small changes over time, and I think that's maybe the way to go on it, rather than just say, hey, I'm going to go from today to be a slow food junkie. Like that. I don't think you call them junkies if they're slow food advocate.
Yeah.
But I guess that's probably the better way to go, to try it or to move into it rather than doing it overnight.
Right. So, I mean, you can picture someone that goes through the drive-through for breakfast and lunch and dinner, and they say, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to grow my own food. So they go out tomorrow and they till up 1,000 square foot space and they start trying to grow. I guarantee you in a couple months they would be so tired. So you've got to definitely plan out, do a little bit of research, make those small changes over time, and it's going to be a way more realistic way to adjust to that kind of a lifestyle.
Yeah, some people make a breakthrough on this that, they've lived a certain lifestyle all their life, and then because they became involved with your group, that all of a sudden they've shifted over a period of time.
Sure, and you can see people make changes, weight-wise, physically, how they look, how they feel, how they think. And then you'll see people create great relationships and connections by making that change also with the people that provide this food. So it's a good way to bring the community together.
And talk about it in that you also have the background in it. Why is this a good thing for people to not only think about, but to start doing?
It's a great thing for people to think about and start doing because this is the future of our environment. We hear a lot out there in the news about different issues such as pollinators and certain varieties that may not exist anymore. And this is our future. We have to have food in order to live. And we need to make sure that we keep biodiversity at the forefront when it comes to food. We need many different varieties of foods and not just say 2 varieties of potatoes. Because what if the major growers out there had 2 varieties of potatoes and 1 variety got taken down by some harsh disease? Then we're left with 1 variety. If that's wiped out, we don't have potatoes anymore. Corn is huge. We use corn for a lot of products, so we need biodiversity. We need many, many, many different types of corns so that we can keep that food around for the future.
Well, you're mentioning that. I was just hearing on the news, I'm trying to think where it was, but there's some insect out there now that's really messing up the food supply. As you point out, if there's only one option, people are going to be in some degree of trouble. But if
Sure.
you have more options out there, it can help. And I guess so that's another thing I guess you help people with too. How do you deal with different things that can attack the plants or not be good for the plants? And that's part of the challenge, I guess, becoming a slow food person.
It is part of the challenge, and every year is different. And, whether you're an expert grower or it's your first year, you're going to learn different things every year because the climate's different, the weather's different. And just learning what works and what hasn't worked in the past. It's recognizing signs and symptoms early that maybe you can treat and keep that plant from dying out, or sometimes it's just too late and that's what happened. So we make a note in our garden journal and then look back next year and say, okay, we don't want this to happen again, so maybe we need to do it this way.
Kind of cool what you just mentioned, a garden journal.
Yeah.
Describe that, and we'll talk about the value of that. But what is a garden journal?
So I think most gardeners, if you're really into it, you're going to write down everything that you've gardened. You'll have maybe like a little map of all the plants you had planted in your garden space, and then you make notes throughout the season, what went well, what didn't go well, the way the plant looked, the way the plant looks around a specific plant, what worked growing in this area over here in the garden, what didn't work well, and then we can change it up as the years go along, depending on what your garden season's looking like.
What's so cool about that idea, and I love it, is I just think about me, even from a health standpoint, and I'll have something happen, and I always forget to put it down, what I did to get out of it. And we forget to do that, but I guess if a gardener, it's very helpful that if you had a problem 2 years ago, you can find it and not have to try to remember it. Great idea.
Yeah, and then you can call your other friends and say, hey, did this happen to you? This is what I had happen. And you can compare notes and say, maybe you should try this, or maybe you should try this. This worked for me, or this didn't.
Back to the squash, I was just thinking, again, I'm not a big squash fan, but I guess you can use it in many different kinds of meals and menus.
You can use it as a savory meal, or you can use it as a sweet meal. That's the good thing about the squash.
Dessert also?
You can do dessert.
Have you?
Absolutely.
Interesting, I've never heard of it. I guess you could make a squash pie if you wanted.
You can make a squash pie, just kind of like you would a pumpkin pie.
Interesting.
Yeah, puree it down and do it in a pie form.
Put a little chocolate on it. Yeah.
Hey, I go for it.
I'm there.
Try it.
Go with chocolate. Well, it's funny because it ties into, I just love another event you have, you call happy hour events, and so
Yes.
people think about happy hours in one context. What are your happy hours?
So our happy hours are not the traditional happy hour that you would think of, but we do like this this play on words because the event is a 1 hour event. We do it from 5:30 to 6:30. And what we do is we go into a local restaurant, a local brewery, a local cidery, and we will invite the slow food fans to come out to this free event. We'll have a supplier such as a farmer or someone that has grown these apples for the cider, and we'll bring out the creator. So we'll have the chef or the brewer and then that supplier come together, and we do a discussion around what they have at this location. They'll tell us about the food that they've prepared for us, and then the slow food fans get to kind of pick the brains of these people that we really admire so much. We want to talk to the chefs, and they're always in the back working so diligently. So this event gives the people the opportunity to ask them why they cook the way that they cook. Why do you use a local farmer instead of buying from Cisco? And it's just a really excellent way to get everybody connected. And it gives these restaurants and these breweries excellent support for the great work that they're doing. And they showcase these farmers that are doing it the best way that they possibly can. And they're providing us with the best nutritious food that we can get anywhere around our area.
So if they come to an event, is there also food tasting or food sampling at the events?
There is. We provide a little appetizer set up so you can come get some free food that's been prepared at that location. And then if you want to buy a drink, that's on you. But after people come in, they kind of mingle. We bring those chefs out. We bring those farmers out. Everybody has a great discussion for about 20 minutes. Then we socialize and we call it a day.
The only problem with you talking about this, I'm getting hungry as you're talking about it. I want some of the stuff here. Talk to me also, if you would, about, Abby, some of the other programs you're doing with Slow Food Asheville this year.
So we've been in a number of festivals this year. We want to support all these great festivals we have in Asheville. A couple of weeks ago, we were at the Garlic Fest. So that's a great way to promote everything around that festival and the people at So True Seed that do really great things for the community. We also will go into community gardens. This year, we are helping out a 4-H club in Cherokee get a garden started in that area. So we've provided them with some free seeds. And we just like to be out in the community educating as many folks as we possibly can, whether it's at a tailgate market or we were at Whole Foods last week for Giving Back Day. But we just like to be out in the community providing as much information as we possibly can.
And so if anybody wants to get involved in slow foods, I guess there are two things. One, just start thinking about it, and then start coming to some of your functions. Is that a way to get involved?
That would be the best way to get involved. You can go on our website, slowfoodasheville.com. There's an events page. On that page, you can see pretty much everything we're doing. You can come to one of the happy hour events. Those have been happening on average about once a month. You're welcome to come to one of those. They're always free and open to anyone. You can join our newsletter list. So on the website, there's a sign-up sheet where you can put in your information and you get a monthly email, and that'll have the newsletter with all the current activities that we're doing.
So in terms of running the organization, so it's a board, you're involved in it, you have people involved. Is this an organization, or is it funded, or do you get, is the whole, how is this set up?
We're a nonprofit organization, so we pretty much raise our own funds. We don't sell goods in order to make money. We take donations, so we do it all ourselves, and we rely on the community to help us get the funds, and then we try to listen to what people want and give them great outlets to participate in slow food activities.
What do you see the future of the slow food movement, not only in Asheville, but even nationwide or internationally, as you said?
I think that the younger generations are starting to notice that it's very important that we look at the choices we make on a daily basis. And especially when it comes to food, what you put in your mouth not only affects your body, but it affects the community that you live in, and it affects the globe worldwide. So I'm hoping over time that this movement continues to grow. We have more people growing their own food. If you can't grow your own food, you go out to those farmers markets and you meet the farmers and you find what you're looking for there and get it straight from the source.
As you pointed out, there are also places, certainly in the Asheville area, where you can grow, you can use some other place to grow your own food, or
Absolutely.
community gardens or
Yep.
other places as well, and you support those as well, too?
We do, absolutely, yes.
So have you seen what you do? Have you gone to other chapters, or have you seen the work being done elsewhere?
We have met some other members from chapters. So we've met some people from Chicago. We've met some people from Charleston. And every chapter has different goals and different activities that they're really concentrating on, and different projects. It depends on the climate and what you want to focus on. So say there's a chapter on the coast, they might focus more on slow fish. So getting your fish from reliable sources. Up here, we focus on vegetables and animals because that's what we have here in the mountains. So the chapters all do different things, but the movement and the idea for good, clean, and fair food remains the same across the board.
And you read my mind, because I was going to ask you, kind of as a final question, and you answered it, is that it doesn't just have to be vegetables. It can also
Correct.
be meats, it can also be fish, and it's just doing it naturally as opposed to having somebody else do it for you.
Correct.
In large part.
Yeah, it's staying away from the processed foods. It's staying away from stuff that comes in a box. It's staying away from the drive-throughs. It definitely takes a little bit more time and planning, as I've said. But once you learn that this can fit within your routine and you feel the benefits holistically, then it's well worth all the effort.
And I guess the key as a nutritionist, and I've read this, and you'll I'm sure reinforce it, is the less ingredients, the better. Because as you said, you get something from a box, you find 27 ingredients. Here you're going to find 1, 2, and you put them in, I guess.
Yeah, you put them in, and most likely it's going to taste a lot better. When you have an ingredients list that's half a page long and there's words in that ingredient list that are chemically made that you can't pronounce, then that's not a good sign. We want whole ingredients that are familiar to us.
Again, if anybody wants to get in touch with Asheville Slow Foods, the best bet is what?
Go to slowfoodasheville.com. There you can sign up for the newsletter list. You can read everything going on within the organization and go to our Facebook page, Slow Food Asheville.
Great. I'd like to thank you, Abby, for being my guest the second half hour on the Blaines Royal Show. I'm hoping we'll be able to see it on Facebook Live. Also, Jennifer McDuff, my first guest today. Also, Amy Prisnosh, my producer, and Zuzu Welsh, who provided the music you heard at the beginning of the show and you'll now be hearing at the end. Look forward to having you join me next Wednesday at 9 a.m. here on the new WPVM LP in Asheville, North Carolina. You can also listen online at WPVMFM.org and check us out on Facebook Live.